May 20, 2017. U.S. mainstream media unwittingly plunges into Trump trap, learns art of war is real. A fascinating Security Council (SC) report circulating in the Kremlin today on the Syrian deconfliction talks currently ongoing between the Ministry of Defense (MOD) and the U.S. Department of Defense (DoD), reveals an astonishing exchange between the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff General Joseph Dunford and Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, wherein it was revealed that President Donald Trump has been employing the tactics of the ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu against the American mainstream propaganda media in order to destroy them, and all of whom have now unwittingly plunged into what is being described by some members of the SC as the Trump trap. According to this report, in knowing that he could very likely win the 2016 U.S. presidential election against his deeply flawed opponent Hillary Clinton, but also knowing it would ignite a deep state backlash against him, then billionaire businessman Trump, on 17 August, appointed as the chief executive of his presidential campaign a former U.S. Navy officer named Steve Bannon, whose meteoric rise through the business and banking worlds is credited by his near single-minded devotion to Sun Tzu's 5th-century military treatise Art of War, whose governing precept is, "All warfare is based on deception." Once taking control of Trump's presidential campaign, this report continues, Bannon became aware that the Obama regime was spying on Trump and his associates, while at the same time leaking this secret information to the U.S. mainstream propaganda media, with Bannon's, greatest fears being that Trump's extensive ties with China was the greatest danger to derailing his campaign. Using the art of war precept, even though you are competent, appear incompetent. Though effective, appear ineffective. However, this report notes, Bannon, in an effort to keep concealed Trump's extensive ties with China prior to the election, embarked on a deliberate misinformation campaign suggesting, misleading the deep state-aligned mainstream propaganda media into believing Trump had ties with Russia instead, a misdirection U.S. journalists were highly susceptible to, as recently revealed in a study conducted by neuroscientist Tara Swift and the London Press Club that determined the highest functions of journalists' brains were operating at a lower level than the average population, due to dehydration, self-medicating, and fueling their brains with caffeine and high-sugar foods. In Bannon knowing that any investigation into Trump's ties with Russia would show nothing because they have never existed, this report explains, he and his White House associates have, nevertheless, continued a steady stream of suggestive leaks to the U.S. mainstream propaganda media, fueling the fake news Russian hysteria meme, that only abated yesterday when Bannon and his closest aides left Washington, D.C. with President Trump on an international travel trip. So masterful, in fact, has Bannon's Russian hysteria meme been in misdirecting the mind-addled, unable to think clearly, confused, U.S. mainstream propaganda media, this report says. This past week he was even able to get them to praise the appointment of former FBI Director Robert Mueller to investigate Trump's supposed Russian ties, that was accomplished with help from China and Mueller's global law firm WilmerHale, who, also, represent Trump's daughter Ivanka, her husband Jared Kushner and Trump's former campaign manager Paul Manafort. The only crack, fissure to appear so far in Bannon's Russian hysteria meme, this report explains, occurred this past week when one of the U.S. mainstream propaganda media's most respected leftist journalists named Matt Taibbi noticed the complete lack of any evidence supporting any Trump ties with Russia, and who wrote, "Liberal thinkers have traditionally abhorred secret courts, secret surveillance and secret evidence, and in the past would have reflexively discouraged the news media from printing the unverified or unverifiable charges emanating from such secret sources. But because it's Donald Trump, No one seems to care. What's at the heart of this case? Why can't we be told what's going on? Echoing Matt Taibbi's growing concerns of any evidence to support the Trump-Russia meme, this report further notes, is the highly respected former CIA and U.S. military intelligence officer Philip Giraldi, who wrote that the investigation into Russia and the Trumpsters has been a high priority at FBI and also in Congress for nearly a year. Yet so far no one has produced evidence that anyone broke any law or even that someone did something wrong, and who further question why Obama's former CIA director John Brennan has not been questioned by anyone, with Giraldi stating, while former FBI Director James Comey, current NSA Director Mike Rogers, and former Justice Department senior official Sally Yates have all appeared once, Brennan's absence is conspicuous as he was the senior national security official most closely tied to the Obama administration, may have had the tools at hand to fake the Russian connection, and has also been plausibly linked to encouraging British intelligence to provide damaging information on Michael Flynn. With the entire American deep state mainstream propaganda media apparatus having now plunged into Bannon's Art of War Trump trap by their historic negative coverage of President Trump due to the entirely fictional Russian hysteria meme, this report says, a just-released Harvard University study is now showing, too, that the anti-Trump coverage of these media charlatans now exceeds over 85%, with CNN and NBC astoundingly airing on an hourly basis 93% negative coverage of America's new leader. By Bannon's employing his Trump-Russia meme using the Art of War precept, the business of the general is quiet and secret. His plans are calm and deeply hidden, so no one can figure them out. Secrecy and misdirection are essential arts too, this report explains. Once the American people discover that their mainstream propaganda media have been lying to them about Trump's supposed Russian ties, their belief in these leftist news organizations will collapse entirely, and with just 6% of these people saying they trust the media now, will leave them in total trust of President Trump above his deep state enemies. Also astounding to notice about Bannon's Art of War strategy to protect President Trump, this report continues, is that not only is this ancient military strategy about to destroy the leftist U.S. mainstream propaganda media, it's now the main operational tactic of Trump's foreign policy, and as, perhaps, best articulated by the noted American scholar Dr. Patrick Basham, who wrote, Trump's foreign policy twists and turns actually channel Sun Tzu's The Art of War. This Chinese classic, studied since ancient times, is the world's seminal guide to political and military strategy. The Art of War resonates today because Sun Tzu formulated his ideas in an environment characterized by ever-shifting patterns of alliance, the destabilization of interstate relationships, and warfare among aspirants to hegemony. And in following Bannon's Art of War strategy in his foreign policy too, this report notes, President Trump is even today in Saudi Arabia to conclude what will be the largest arms deal in American history, valued at over $350 billion during the next 10 years, that if successful will remake the entire Middle East, but if fails could actually ignite World War III. This report concludes by noting that even though Bannon's Art of War strategy has, indeed, unleashed a U.S. mainstream propaganda media onslaught of historic proportions against President Trump, his approval rating remains at 44% of Americans who support him, with 96% of those who voted him into office, also, saying they would do so again.